Hi there. Catching up a little bit on the new moon ritual, which is now into the full moon side of things, actually a little bit past at this point, still working with this Kantoji oracle. And a reminder that this is the third now in a series. I'm going to hit a couple of cards in this, and so you can go back to the beginning to kind of see what this is all about. But I'm looking at, in this series of cards, today I'm going to be looking at the first quarter moon, which is actually a week and a half or almost a couple weeks ago now, and the full moon, which is a few days ago. I'm a little later in recording this, but this is all for sitting with over the long period of time, so it's not like we have to be super strict about having it happen on the day. I did read these right around the times of those moons. I just didn't get to recording this until now. So for the first quarter, this card indicates how your situation builds momentum once it starts. These things add fuel to the fire that began at the new moon phase of your cycle. And just as a reminder, I this month am working with the concept of Venus Reimagined, and the first quarter moon card is the Sentient Nest, which I really like how that looks a little bit like flames. I think that's kind of fitting for the things that add fuel to the fire. So the Sentient Nest is a reminder that the environment is alive, aware, and responsive, and to tune into it. Make contact with a powerful node in the infinite web of the universe. And remember, we're not separate from that infinite web. We're not separate from the environment. We are part of the environment, not just in the environment. We are, and that's what this card is all about, integral to the environment. So it talks about coral reefs that are a living architecture. I think that's the inspiration for the artwork on this card. And not only are coral reefs breathing, living, and aware, just like other living beings, but they are a foundational cornerstone of the ecosystem that they're part of. And while all things are interconnected and the fate of all affects all other things, some nodes serve as foundational support for many other nodes and are very influential. So it's really a reminder to think about this archetype and a couple of different topics. One, your environment and life architecture. So the environment and architecture of your life, consider that sentient, has its own intelligence, creativity, and logic. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're in active conversation with your environment and the conditions of your life. And that means, both the outside world, maybe inside your home space environment. I would argue it also means your inner environment. So it's really broadly interpreted in my way of thinking. So taking note of the architecture of those environments, right? And how those are built and how they interact and how they're living environments, as well as cornerstones and powerful nodes, which again, this is how your situation builds momentum once it starts. And I love that this one is about that structural element. Consider the foundational cornerstones of your life or the situation in question. Upon what or whom do a great many other factors hinge? Once you've identified these critical nodes, consider that if you support the well-being of these critical factors, then all things that hinge upon them will also improve. Yeah, so if you feel that it's actually a cornerstone that you need to remove from your life or circumstance, first consider how this is done when replacing the foundation of a house or a car gets its tire changed. So the whole structure has to be lifted up so that the foundation can be changed. And that's a really careful kind of process. You don't want to tear down the house necessarily to rebuild the foundation. You want to lift up the structure, rebuild the foundation, and then build that back. So using that as kind of a metaphor for how we might consider both internal and external processes around environment and rebuilding environment. And just keeping in mind, environment is collaborating and co-creating. both your internal and your external. So if you think about it that way, what might you want to do in your external environment? What might you want to do in your internal environment? I've mentioned in here before that I've been in a kind of purging, shedding, letting a lot of things go phase of life. And yeah, so this one's really pretty meaningful for me. And then also for the full moon, which was a few nights ago, was a full moon eclipse. It was amazing. If you got to see it, it was absolutely fantastic. So this one is the coiled snake that I think is really great to be representing that full moon. And the full moon card indicates the peak experience of your cycle, the moment when things tip from growth into the diminishing phase. So if you're exploring a destructive cycle, this archetype offers insight into your extreme edge of discomfort. Once you reach this perimeter of your experience, you feel the relief of backing off from the painful situation you are in. But because this extremity is part of the overall cycle, it does not help you to break the destructive pattern. The archetype offers insights into how to work differently with your edge, so it does not send you back around to the point of regeneration, but rather beyond the edge and into new territory. So that's important to think about. If you are exploring a constructive cycle, this archetype gives you insights into how best to recognize and embrace this moment and accept its fleeting nature. All right, so the coiled snake. I really feel like I want to read the little story at the beginning of this. Each of these has a little bit of a myth or a story to the beginning, and I really liked this one. So once you acclimatize to having been turned into a snake, you start to enjoy the feeling of your whole body being in direct communion with the earth. You luxuriate in the sensuousness of your movements and the sinuous power you feel in every cell of your serpentine self. To be a snake, you realize, is a profoundly tactile experience. You stretch yourself to your full length and feel as though you could encircle the earth. Your mind wanders in such Ophidian reveries until you hear a twig snap nearby. Immediately, your muscles contract you into a tight coil, directed by some ancient reptilian brain suddenly wakened within each cell of your being. Your tongue flicks about in cautious scenting, and you feel ready for anything. I just like that one. So consider whether your current situation calls for you to unfurl your full power, or whether this is a time to conserve your energy and reserve your strength for another time. That's a really important question. One of the key attributes of snakes is their length. So their lengthiness gives them power and agility, but it can also be a vulnerability. They coil as a form of self-protection. That keeps them, close and tight in so that they can protect from animals. So there's been times when you benefit from being expansive and open, and there are times when it's better to keep your energy close. So this archetype is really kind of has a dual nature, which I think is great to go along with, again, the cards, I love how they match up, to go along with that full moon concept. So some questions to ask. Do I generally tend to be more protective, or do I tend to unfurl my power? Question occurs to me is, and how does that unfurling of power show up? And is it showing up in a way that's also, I'm trying to come up with the right word, powerful in the world, but not power over, power with, in a way that is going to accomplish what needs to be accomplished while not damaging others. And that means coming from a place of choosing to react, or choosing to respond, not react, which that's definitely a work in progress for me. Does my situation call for self-protection and conservation of energy, or for displaying and extending my full power? Do I use my power skillfully? Do I let my power unfurl in the right moments? When I show and utilize my power, does it lead to positive results for myself and others? Do I use my power in ways that cause harm to me and or to others? Do I protect myself skillfully? Do I protect myself in the right moments? Do I protect myself longer than is necessary? And here's one really very important point, which may not be the same situation as a lot of the other situations that we might be thinking about, but if you're in a long-term unsafe situation in which it is rarely ever safe to use power or shift out of protection mode, is there a way to get to safety? Is there someone who can help get you to safety? But really, this archetype is asking us to work in that protect, reveal, that back and forth, and to think of the metaphor of the snake shedding skin as symbols of change and revelation, which again, if we're working with Venus, had to talk to my boy about getting some boxes at the office store. My big boy. So really getting back into that metaphor of the snake and the shedding. Really huge topics right now for the Venus Reimagined, for what I'm going through in my life in terms of letting things go, shedding. And a lot of this is things that come from our history, our families of origin, how we were taught and shown what power looks like in the world. And I think that's extremely, extremely relevant right now for a lot of reasons with respect to the question that I'm sitting with around what is Venus Reimagined, because that does relate tremendously to power and to the use of power in the world in wise ways. Yeah, so really leaving with the question of what if I unfurl my true power in the exact right moments? What if I protect and conserve my power so it's fully available when those right moments emerge? And really just trusting your intuition, which I've talked about in some of the other videos, trusting your intuition to know which of those is called for at what times, and just sitting with that question. So thanks for tuning into this one. There'll be one more video in this series where I'll look at the third quarter moon and the sun cards. So thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.